Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yata Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shivishikam Vitam Scha Om Ajnana Timaranda Shagyana Jana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Gurva Bhistam Supurakam Garaganara Sishasambhushitam Chintya Chintya Samasta Vedanipanam Shri Rupa Patanagam Govinda Abhidam Ujwalam Bharatanam Bhaktyan Vidam Sundaram Mande Vishwagurun Shah Divyat Bhagavat Prem Nawe Bija Pranam Devam Divyatanam Suchandvananam Balarka Chelanchitam Sandrananda Puram Sareka-varanam Vairagya Vidyambunim Sri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Baram Bandetam Shubharam Mareka Sharanam Nyashishvara Shidaram Vanchakopatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavenebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratabhishe Namah. So reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, translation and commentary by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This is Antya-lila chapter 14, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's feelings of separation from Krishna. I'm starting with verse 1. Krishna Visheda Vibhranja Manasa Vapushadiya Yadyad Vyadata Gaurangas Taulesha Katyate Duna Taulesha Katyate Duna. I shall now describe a very small portion of the activities performed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with his mind, intelligence, and body when he was bewildered by strong feelings of separation from Krishna. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Swayam Bhagavan, Jaya Jaya Gaurachandra Bhakta Ganapran. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All glories to Lord Gaurachandra, the life and soul of his devotees. Jaya Jaya Nityananda Chaitanya Jivan, Jaya Dvaita Charya Jaya Gaura Priyatam. All glories to Lord Nityananda, who is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's very life, and all glories to Advaita Charya, who is extremely dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jaya Swarup Shivasari Prabhu Bhaktagan, Shakti Deha, Kori Jena Chaitanya Varnan. All glories to Swarup Damodar and all the other devotees, headed by Srivas Thakur. Please give me the strength to describe the character of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prabhura Virahon Mara Bhav Gambir Bhujitena Parikeho Jajapi Hoidir. Prabhura Virahon Mara Bhav Gambir Bhujitena Parikeho Jajapi Hoidir. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's emotion of transcendental madness and separation from Krishna is very deep and mysterious. Even though one is very advanced and learned, he cannot understand it. Bujatena parijaha barnitin ke pare se buje barne Chaitanya Shakti dena jare. How can one describe unfathomable subject matters? It is possible only if Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives him the capability. Swarup Gosayara Raghunatha Das Edwira Karachate Elila Prakash. Swarup Damodar Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami recorded all these transcendental activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in their notebooks. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's transcendental feelings of separation from Krishna and his consequent madness are not at all understandable by a person on the material platform. Nonetheless, a so-called party of devotees named Nadia Nagari has sprung up and introduced the worship of Vishnu Priya. This certainly indicates her ignorance concerning Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. In the opinion of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, such worship is a product of the imagination. Many other methods of worshipping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have also been introduced, but they have all been rejected by stalwart devotees like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The groups practicing such unauthorized worship have been listed by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur: Aubal, Kartabaja, Neda, Dharaveshani, Sahajya, Sakibeki, Smarta, Jata Gosai, Atibadi, Chudadari, Goranganagari. Swarup Damodar and Raghunath Das Goswami witnessed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities firsthand and recorded them in 2 notebooks. Therefore, without reference to these notebooks, one cannot understand the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Anyone inventing some new method for worshipping Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is certainly unable to understand the Lord's pastimes, for he is bereft of the real process of approaching the Lord. Sekaliye dwi rohena Mahaprabhur pashe, arasab karachakarta rohena duradeshe. In those days, Swarup Damodar and Raghunath Das Goswami lived with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, whereas all other commentators lived far away from him. Besides Swarup Damodar and Raghunath Das Goswami, there were many others who also recorded Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati believes that the people of the world would benefit greatly if such notes were available. It is a most unfortunate situation for human society that none of these notebooks is still extant. Kanikane anubhave e duijan sankepe bahuye koran karacha grantan. These 2 great personalities, Swarup Damodar and Raghunath Das Goswami, recorded the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu moment by moment. They describe these activities briefly as well as elaborately in their notebooks. For future reference, we should remember that Swarup Damodar Goswami recorded the pastimes briefly, whereas Raghunath Das Goswami recorded them elaborately. These 2 great personalities simply recorded the facts. They did not create any descriptive literary embellishments. Swarup Sutrakarta Raghunatha Brittikar Tarabahuya Bharne Panjitika Vyavahar. Swarup Damodar wrote short notes, whereas Raghunath Das Goswami wrote elaborate descriptions. I shall now describe Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities more elaborately, as if fluffing out compressed cotton. Panjitika means further explanations of a subject. Writing such explanations is likened to the process of fluffing out cotton. Tate Vishwas Kori Shuna Bhavera Varnan Hoibe Bhavera Gyana Paiba Primadan. Please hear faithfully this description of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic emotions. Thus you will come to know of his ecstatic love, and ultimately you will achieve love of Godhead. Krishna Maturaya Gele Gopira Jay Dasha Hoila Krishna Vichede Prabhur Se Dasha Upajila. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt separation from Krishna, his condition exactly corresponded to that of the gopis in Vrindaban after Krishna's departure from Mathura. Uddhava darshane chaiche rarara vilap, krame krame hoila prabhur se unmara vilap. The lamentation of Srimati Radharani when Uddhava visited Vrindaban gradually became a feature of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's transcendental madness. Radhikara bhave prabhur sada abhiman, se bhave apanake hoy radha gyan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's emotions exactly corresponded to those of Srimati Radharani when she met Uddhava. The Lord always conceived of himself in her position and sometimes thought that he was Srimati Radharani herself. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that the purport of the word abhiman, or self-conception, is that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thought himself to be in the position of Srimati Radharani and was always ready to render Krishna service in that way. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, he assumed the complexion and emotions of Srimati Radharani and remained in that status. He never assumed the complexion or status of Lord Krishna. Of course, Krishna wanted to experience the role of Srimati Radharani. That is the original cause of his assuming the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, pure Vaishnavas never disturb Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's conception of being Srimati Radharani. Unfortunately, at the present moment, a group of so-called devotees maintain that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the enjoyer and that they are enjoyers as well. They have actually deviated from devotional service to the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested himself to show the cultivation of love for Krishna in separation is the easiest way of success for all living entities. Despite this fact, there are some Theosophists who declare that because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, such cultivation is easy for him but difficult for the living entity, and that one can therefore approach Krishna in any way he likes. To nullify this idea, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu demonstrated practically how one can achieve love of Krishna by adopting Srimati Radharani's mood and separation from Krishna. Dibyon mari aiche hoy ki iha vishmoy adiruda babe dibyon mara pralapa hoy. Such is the state of transcendental madness. Why is it difficult to understand? When one is highly elevated in love of Krishna, he becomes transcendentally mad and talks like a madman. Etasya mohana kyasya gatim kam api upeyusha brahmaba kapi vichitri divyonmada itiryate udgorna chitra jopadyas tadbeda bhavolmata. When the ecstatic emotion of enchantment gradually progresses, it becomes similar to bewilderment. Then one reaches the stage of astonishment, vichitri, which awakens transcendental madness, udgorna and chitrajalpa. Udgorna and chitrajalpa are two among the many divisions of transcendental madness. This is a quotation from the Ujjvala Niyamani. Stayibhava Prakarana, 174. Ek din Mahaprabhu kori jachan shayan, Krishna rasa lila kori dekila swapan. One day while he was resting, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dreamed he saw Krishna performing his rasa dance. Sri Banga Sundara Deho Murali Badan Pitambara Banamala Madana Mohan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw Lord Krishna standing with his beautiful body curved in three places, holding his flute to his lips. Wearing yellow garments and garlands of forest flowers, he was enchanting even the Cupid. Mandali Bande Gopigan Gorananartan Madhye Radha Sahanache Brajendra Nandan. The gopis were dancing in a circle, and in the middle of that circle, Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda, danced with Radharani. Deki Prabhu se rase avishta hoila, Vrindavane Krishna painu e jnana koila. Seeing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was overwhelmed with the transcendental mellow of the rasa dance, and he thought, now I am with Krishna in Vrindaban. Prabhura vilamba deki Govinda jagaila, jagile swapna jnana hoila, Prabhu duke hoila. When Govinda saw that the Lord had not yet risen, he awakened him. Understanding that he had only been dreaming, the Lord was somewhat unhappy. Dehabhyase nitya kritya kore samapan, kale jai koila Jagannatha darshan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed his customary daily duties, and at the usual time he went to see Lord Jagannath in the temple. Jabat kala darshana korana garudera pache, prabhura age darshana kore loka lake lake. As he viewed Lord Jagannath from behind the Garuda column, hundreds and thousands of people in front of him were seeing the deity. Uriya ekstri bide darshanana paya Garude chadi deke prabhuraskande paradiya. Suddenly a woman from Orissa, unable to see Lord Jagannath because of the crowd, climbed the column of Garuda, placing her foot on Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's shoulder. Dekiya Govinda aste bhyaste strike varjila tare namaite Prabhu Govinde nishedila. When he saw this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's personal servant, Govinda, hastily got her down from her position. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, however, chastised him for this. Because Garuda is the carrier of Lord Vishnu, he is the supreme Vaishnava. Therefore, to touch his body with one's feet or to climb the column of Garuda is certainly a Vaishnava aparad, an offense to a Vaishnava. The woman was also offensive to Krishna by putting her foot on the shoulder of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Seeing all these offenses, Govinda very hastily made her get down. Ari Bhashya Eis Strire Nakora Varjan Kuruka Jateshta Jagannatha Darshan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Govinda, O Adi Bhashya, uncivilized man, do not forbid this woman to climb the Garuda Stamba. Let her see Lord Jagannath to her satisfaction. Aste bhyaste se nari bhumete namila Mahaprabhur deki tara charana bandila. When the woman came to her senses, however, she quickly climbed down to the ground and seeing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately begged at his lotus feet for forgiveness. Tara arti deki Prabhu kohite lagila eta arti Jagannath moranahi dila. Seeing the woman's eagerness, Mahaprabhu said, Lord Jagannath has not bestowed so much eagerness upon me. The woman was so eager to see Lord Jagannath that she forgot she was offending the feet of a Vaishnava by climbing the column of Garuda. She also neglected to consider that by putting her foot on the shoulder of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, she offended the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These are both grievous offenses that displease the Supreme Lord and Vaishnavas. She was so eager to see Lord Jagannath, however, that she committed all these offenses obliviously. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu praised her eagerness. He regretted that Lord Jagannath had not bestowed such great eagerness upon him. Jagannathe avishta ihara tanuman prane moraskande paradiyache tahonahijane. She has fully absorbed her body, mind, and life in Lord Jagannath. Therefore, she was unaware that she was putting her foot on my shoulder. Aho Bhagavati, Aho Bhagavati e Bandi iharapai ihara prasadiyaiche arti amaravahoy. Alas, how fortunate this woman is. I pray at her feet that she favor me with her great eagerness to see Lord Jagannath. Purbeaste jabe koila Jagannatha darshan Jagannathe deki sakat Brajendra Nandan. Just previously, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had been seeing Lord Jagannath as Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda in person. Swapnera darshana veshe tadrupa hoilaman jahantahan deke sarvatra murali badan. Becoming fully absorbed in that vision, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had assumed the mood of the gopis, so much so that everywhere he looked, he saw Krishna standing with his flute to his lips. Ebe jadis striuredeki prabhurabhaya hoila Jagannath Subhadra Balaramer Swarupadekila. After seeing the woman, the Lord's external consciousness returned, and he saw the original deity forms of Lord Jagannath, Subhadra, and Lord Balaram. Kurukshetra deki Krishna aiche hoilaman, kahan Kurukshetra island, kahana Vrindaban. When he saw the deities, Lord Chaitanya thought he was seeing Krishna in Kurukshetra. He wondered, Have I come to Kurukshetra? Where is Vrindaban? Prapta Ratna Haraya Aiche Vyagrahoila Vishana Hoya Prabhu Nija Vasa Aila. Lord Chaitanya grew very much agitated, like a person who has just lost a recently acquired jewel. Then he became very morose and returned home. Bhumera upharabashe nake bhume like ashuganga netrebahe kichwina deke. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sat down on the ground and began to mark it with his fingernails. He was blinded by tears which flowed from his eyes like the Ganges. Pailun Vrindavananata Puna Harailun Kemora Nileka Krishna Kahan Muyanu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I found Krishna, the Lord of Vrindaban, but I have lost him again. Who has taken my Krishna? Where have I come? These are the feelings of Srimati Radharani. First, Lord Chaitanya felt that he had been taken to Vrindaban where he saw Krishna's rasa dance with the gopis. Then he was brought to Kurukshetra to see Lord Jagannath, his sister Subhadra, and Lord Balaram. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lost Vrindaban and Krishna, the master of Vrindaban. At this time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu experienced Divyonmada, transcendental madness and separation from Krishna. At Kurukshetra, Krishna displays his opulence, whereas in Vrindaban, he is in his original position. Krishna never goes even a step away from Vrindaban. Therefore, Kurukshetra is less important for the gopis than Vrindaban. Although devotees who worship Krishna in opulence, his Vaikuntha aspect, may prefer to see Lord Krishna at Kurukshetra along with Subhadra and Balaram, the gopis want to see Krishna in Vrindaban, performing the rasa dance with Srimati Radharani. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed by practical example how one can cultivate the mood of Radharani and the other gopis in separation from Krishna. Devotees absorbed in this mood do not like to see Krishna anywhere else but Vrindaban. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lamented, I found Krishna in Vrindaban, and now I have again lost him and come to Kurukshetra. Unless one is a very highly advanced devotee, he cannot understand these intricate feelings. The author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, however, has tried to explain this Divyonmada as far as possible, and it is our duty simply to appreciate it as far as possible. Therefore, the author has made the following request in verse 11. Tate Vishwash Kori Shuna Bhavera Varnan Hoibe Bhavera Jnana Bhaiba Primadan. My dear readers, please try to hear this description with faith and love. That will help you understand transcendental ecstasy, and at last you will achieve love of Godhead very easily. Swapna Beshe Preme Prabhur Garagaraman Baya Hoile Hoi Jaina Harailadan. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dreamed of the rasa dance, he was fully absorbed in transcendental bliss. But when his dream broke, he thought he had lost a precious jewel. Unmatera Prai Prabhu Korana Ganaracha Dehara Swabhave Koran Snapna Bhojana Kritya. Thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would chant and dance, always absorbed in the bliss of transcendental madness. He carried out the necessities of the body, such as eating and bathing, merely out of habit. Ratri Hoile Swarup Ramanandelaya Apanamanera Baba Kohe Udgadiya. At night, Lord Chaitanya would reveal to Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy the ecstatic feelings of his mind. Prapta pranashya chuta vita atma yayo visha dojita deha geha Grihita Kapalika Dharmako Me Vrindavanam Sendriya Sishya Brinda. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, at first, my mind somehow achieved the treasure of Krishna, but it again lost him. Therefore it gave up my body and home because of lamentation and accepted the religious principles of a Kapalika yogi. Thus my mind went to Vrindaban with its disciples, my senses. This verse is clearly metaphorical. Prapta Ratna Haraya Taragunas Sanarya Mahaprabhu Sandape Bibo Raya Swarupera Kancha Dori Kohe Haha Kori Hari Darya Gela Hoila Chapal. Having lost his acquired gem, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became overwhelmed with lamentation by remembering its attributes. Then grasping the necks of Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar Goswami, he cried, "Alas, where is my Lord Hari? Where is Hari?" Finally, he became restless and lost all patience. Shuna Bandava Krishnara Madhuri Charalobe Moraman Chadiloka Bedadharma Jogi Hoya Hoila Bikari. My dear friends, he said, please hear of Krishna's sweetness. Because of a great desire for that sweetness, my mind has given up all social and Vedic religious principles and taken to the profession of begging, exactly like a mystic yogi. Krishna Lila Mandala Shuddha Shanka Kundala Gadiyache Sukahari Korikar Se Kundala Kane Pare Trina Lao Talidari Asha Juli Kandera Upar. The ring of Krishna's Rasa Lila, manufactured by Sukadeva Goswami, the most auspicious craftsman, is as pure as an earring made from conch shell. The yogi of my mind is wearing that earring upon his ear. From a gourd he has carved out the bow of my aspiration, and he has also taken the bag of my expectations on his shoulder. Chindyakanta Udigai Duli Vibhuti Malina Kai Haha Krishna Pralapa Utar Udvega Dvarasha Hate Loberaj Chulani Mate Bika Babe Krishna Kolibar. The yogi of my mind wears the torn quilt of anxiety on his dirty body, which is covered with dust and ashes. His only words are, alas, Krishna. He wears 12 bangles of distress on his wrist and a turban of greed on his head. Because he has not eaten anything, he is very thin. I'll repeat this. The ring of Krishna's Rasa Lila, manufactured by Sukadeva Goswami, the most auspicious craftsman, is as pure as an earring made from a conch shell. The yogi of my mind is wearing that earring upon his ear. From a gourd he has carved out the bow of my aspirations, and he has taken the bag of my expectations on his shoulder. The yogi of my mind wears the torn quilt of anxiety on his dirty body, which is covered with dust and ashes. His only words are, alas, Krishna. Alas, Krishna. He wears 12 bangles of distress on his wrist and a turban of greed on his head. Because he has not eaten anything, he is very thin. Vyasa Sukadi Jogigan Krishna Atmas Niranjan Brajedharaj Jatalilagan Bhagavata Shastragane Koreache Varnane Setarja Pade Anukrama Setarja Pade Anukana. The great yogi of my mind always studies the poetry and discussions of Lord Krishna's Vrindaban pastimes. In Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures, great saintly yogis like Vyasadeva and Sukadeva Goswami have described Lord Krishna as the super soul, beyond all material contamination. Dashendriye Sishyakori Mahabala Namadari Sishya Loya Korila Gaman Moradeho Swasadan Moradeho Swasadana Vishaya Bhogam Mahadana Sabachadi Gela Vrindaban. The mystic yogi in my mind has assumed the name Mahabal and made disciples of my 10 senses. Thus my mind has gone to Vrindaban, leaving aside the home of my body and the great treasure of material achievement. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu compares his mind to one of the mystic yogis known as Bals, who make at least 10 disciples, which corresponds to the senses. The mystic yogi of my mind has assumed the name Mahabal and made disciples of my 10 senses. Thus, my mind has gone to Vrindaban, leaving aside the home of my body and the great treasure of material enjoyment. Vrindavane prajagan jata stavara jangama brika lata grihastashrame dharagare bigatan Falamula Putrasan Evriti Kore Sishyasane. In Vrindavan, he goes from door to door begging alms with all his disciples. He begs from both the moving and the inner inhabitants, the citizens, the trees, and the creepers. In this way, he lives on fruits, roots, and leaves. Krishna Guna Rupa Skanda Shabda Parasha Seishuddha Ashwade Gopigan Tasavara Grasa Seshe Ani Panchendriya Sishe E Vikaya Rohena Jivan. The gopis of Brajabhumi always taste the nectar of Krishna's attributes, his beauty, his sweetness, his aroma, the sound of his flute, and the touch of his body. My mind's 5 disciples, the senses of perception, gather the remnants of that nectar from the gopis and bring them to the yogi of my mind. The senses maintain their lives by eating those remnants. So in Vrindaban, this yogi of my mind, Mahaprabhu says, he goes from door to door begging with all his disciples, the 10 senses. He begs from both the moving and the inert inhabitants, the citizens, the trees and creepers. In this way, he lives on fruits, roots, and leaves. The gopis of Brajabhumi always taste the nectar of Krishna's attributes, his beauty, his sweetness, his aroma, the sound of his flute, and the touch of his body. My mind's 5 disciples, the senses of perception, gather the remnants of that nectar from the gopis and bring them to the yogi of my mind. The senses maintain their lives by eating those remnants. So of the 10 senses, they gather the remnants of the gopis, taste the nectar of Krishna's attributes, his beauty, the sweetness, his aroma, the sound of his flute, and the touch of his body. Then my mind's 5 disciples, which are of the 10 senses, the senses of perception, gather the remnants of that nectar from the gopis and bring them to the yogi of my mind. The senses maintain their lives by eating those remnants. Shunya kunja mandapakone Jogabhashya Krishna Jane Tahan Rahe Loyasishyagan Krishnatma Niranjan Sakat Dekiteman Jane Ratri Korijagaran. There is a solitary garden where Krishna enjoys his pastimes, and in one corner of a pavilion in that garden, the yogi of my mind, along with his disciples, practices mystic yoga. Wanting to see Krishna directly, the yogi remains awake throughout the night, meditating on Krishna, who is the super soul, uncontaminated by the 3 modes of nature. So there is a solitary garden where Krishna enjoys his pastimes, and in one corner of a pavilion In that garden, the yogi of my mind, along with his disciples, practices mystic yoga, wanting to see Krishna directly. This yogi remains awake throughout the night, meditating on Krishna, who is the Supersoul, uncontaminated by the three modes of nature. The Mahaprabhu is awake during the night time, just and compares his mind to this Mahayogi, who's there with his senses, his disciples, his senses, practicing mystic yoga, wanting to see Krishna directly. This yogi remains awake throughout the night, meditating on Krishna, who is the Supersoul, uncontaminated by the three modes of nature. So Mahaprabhu in his madness remains awake throughout the night, practicing mystic yoga, meditating on Krishna. Mana Krishna Viyogi Duke Mana Hoila Jogi Se Viyogi Dasha Hoi. Mana Krishna Viyogi Duke Mana Hoila Jogi Se Viyogi Dasha Hoi. Se Dashaya Vyakula Hoya Mana Gela Palaya Shunya Mora Sharir Aloy. When my mind lost the association of Krishna and could no longer see him, he became depressed and took up mystic yoga. In the void of separation from Krishna, he experienced 10 transcendental transformations. Agitated by these transformations, my mind fled, leaving my body, his place of residence, empty. Thus, I am completely in trance. In this verse, the outward activities of the Kapalika mendicants have been described, but not their actual life. The Kapalika mendicants are tantric materialists who carry skulls in their hands. They are not Vaishnavas and have nothing to do with spiritual life. Therefore, they are untouchable. Only an outward comparison has been made between the mind and their activities, but their behavior should never be imitated. Krishna Viyogi Gopir Dash Dashahoy Se Dash Dashahoy Prabhura Uday. When the gopis felt separation from Krishna, they experienced 10 kinds of bodily transformations. These same symptoms appeared in the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Dasha. Dash means, in this case, 10, and Dasha means transformations. So it's 10 transformations. Dasha. Chindhatra Jagarodvego Tanavam Malinadgata Pralapa Vyadhir Unmado Mohomrityor Dasha. The 10 bodily transformations resulting from separation from Krishna are anxiety, wakefulness, mental agitation, thinness, uncleanliness, talking like a madman, disease, madness, illusion, and death. The 10 bodily transformations resulting from separation from Krishna are anxiety, wakefulness, mental agitation, thinness, uncleanliness, talking like a madman, disease, madness, illusion, and death. Edash Dashaya Prabhu Vyakula Ratridine Kabukon Dashute Stira Nahimane. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was overwhelmed night and day by these 10 ecstatic conditions. Whenever such symptoms arose, his mind became unsteady. Etakohe Mahaprabhu Mona Korila Ramananda Bhrai Shloka Padite Lagila. After speaking in this way, Mahaprabhu fell silent. Then Ramananda Roy began to recite various verses. Swarup Gosai Kore Krishna Lilagan Duijani Kichu Koila Prabhu Rabaya Gyan. Ramananda Roy recited verses from Srimad Bhagavatam and Swarup Damodar sang of Krishna's pastimes. In this way they brought Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to external consciousness. Emata Arda Ratri Koilan Niryapan Bitara Prakoshte Prabhure Koraila Shayan. After half the night had passed in this way, Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar made Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lie down on his bed in the inner room. Ramananda Roy tabe gela nijagare Swarup Govinda duhe Shwilena dare. Then Ramananda Roy returned home, and Swarup Damodar, Goswami and Govinda lay down in front of the door to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's room. Sabratri Mahaprabhu Kore Jagaran Uchakore Kohe Krishna Nama Sankirtan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained awake throughout the entire night, chanting Hare Krishna mantra very loudly. Then Ramananda Roy returned home, and Swarup Damodar and Govinda lay down in front of the door to Mahaprabhu's room. Mahaprabhu remained awake throughout the entire night, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra very loudly. Shabdana Paya Swarup Kapata Koila Dure Tindwara Deoa Ache Prabhu Nahigare. After some time, Swarup Damodar could no longer hear Mahaprabhu chanting. When he entered the room, he found the 3 doors locked, but Mahaprabhu was gone. Chintita hoila sabe Prabhu rana dekiya Prabhu chahe bule sabe jute jwalia. All the devotees were very anxious when they saw that the Lord was not in his room. They wandered about searching for him with a warning lamp. Simha-dvara uttara dvitiya achi ektai Taramaje Badi Achin Chaitanya Gosai. After searching for some time, they came upon Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lying in a corner by the northern side of the Simha-dvara gate. After searching for some time, they came upon Mahaprabhu lying in a corner by the northern side of the Simha-dvara gate. So after Swarup Damodar is hearing sounds from Mahaprabhu for some time, but then he finds Mahaprabhu's not present, and they go out searching to see where is Mahaprabhu. And finally they came upon Mahaprabhu lying in a corner by the northern side of the Simha-dvara gate. Deki Swarup Gosayari Anandita Hoila Prabhur Dasha Deki Puna Chintite Lagila. At first they were overjoyed to see him, but when they saw his condition, all the devotees headed by Swarup Damodar Goswami were very anxious. Prabhupadi Achana Dirga Hoy Panchachai Jatena Deho Nashai Shwasa Nahi Bai Prabhupadi Achena Dirga Hata Panchachai Achena Achetana Deho Nashayas Swasa Nahi Bai. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was lying unconscious, and his body had become elongated to 5 or 6 cubits. There was no breath from his nostrils, ek hastapada dirga teen hata, ek hastapada dirga teen hata, ashti granti bina charama ache banam ache manchaba tata ek hastapada dirga teen hata, ek hastapada dirga teen hat, ashtagrande bina charma ache matratat. Each of his arms and legs have become 3 cubits long. A cubit from this distance to, I believe, from the elbow to the tip of the finger, and obviously that's more than a foot long. It's maybe 15 to 18 inches long on my hand. Each of his arms and legs have become 3 cubits long. So the arms are, this distance, 3 times that. Each of his arms and legs have become 3 cubits long. Only skin connected the separated joints. The Lord's body temperature, indicating his life was very low. All the joints in his arms, legs, neck, and waist were separated by at least 6 inches. All the joints in his arms, leg, neck, and waist were separated at least 6 inches. Stop here. Now we'll sing Hari Harai, and tomorrow we'll continue. Hari Harai Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinatha Maranaman Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Gadadhar Sri Basadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath H.I. Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan Jahoite Vignana Shabista Puran H.I. Gosai Jarmui Taradas Tasabar Pararenu Mora Panchagras Tader Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas Janame More Abhilash H.I. Gosai Jabe Braje Koilabas Radha Krishna Antya-lila Korila Prakash Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindaban Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majayaman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koryash Harinam Sankirtana Kohen Nartam Mudas Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koryash Harinam Sankirtana Kohen Nartam Mudas Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gora Haribo, 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 Haribo. Jai Saparikara Shishi Guru Goranga Gandharvika Giridhari Ju Ki Jai. Tadiya Shri Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmalacharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Namachari Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhakta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhattadasha Raghunath Shad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Premsiko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vishvavaranya Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Ramayapur Ki Jai. Saparshada Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Saparshada Shriman Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Shri Kuladvip Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Sokel Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Sevashram Ki Jai. Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Vrindaban Dham Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Govardhan Sham Kuna Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Jo Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. All the assembled devotees Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Shri Shri Guru Goranga Gandharvika Giridhara Jo Ki Jai.